Hey guys, this is John, and I'm here working on a piece of difficult material. This is Yaupon holly. I bought it a few years ago as nursery stock, and it was really large, and I cut it back. And I didn't really make a lot of decisions on branches at that time. I just cut it back, and now it's filled back in. And as I've looked at it the last couple of years, I think that it needs to make a smaller tree. Okay, so I need to bring it down even smaller. That'll make this base look even more powerful than it does when this tree is taller. So there are a few odd branches on it. I started by saying it was difficult material. There's some branches that just don't feel natural to me. So as I'm looking at these branches, there's a couple branches that just feel a little odd to me. They don't feel like they're placed right. This is one of them. It just kind of has a upside down shoulder here kind of and goes up. So I need to figure out what to do with that. What part is that going to play in the design? There's also another difficult branch here. It's super straight. You know, the placement's not so bad, but it's just really straight going up there. So I need to figure out what to do with that. It's going to make a couple pretty big scars, but I think when I'm finished here, I'll have a tree that's maybe hand high, and there won't be a lot of foliage left on it. This is going to be another really drastic cutback. Okay, so I'm looking at the trunk, and I think this is going to end up being the back side of the tree, and this is going to be the front side, and I'll use this as the main apex. So I think what I'm going to do now is take my pruners and go ahead and remove some of the material that is just in the way and is going to be removed. So this should go pretty quickly. I'm still leaving some of this stuff longer than what I need to leave it. I just want to get the tree down to a point where I can really see it and begin to figure out what I'm going to do. That branch just has to come off. So I'm just going to take it off right here, and then I'll come back with the saw and the concave cutters. In fact, I'm going to need the saw on that one. That one's too big. Years ago, I would have been tempted to leave these branches long and think that I could develop the branches back in. But I've learned over the time, just through experience, that, you know, I leave the length stub where I want the next level of ramification to come from. Because if I leave it this long, it's gonna bud out here at the end, and the next level of ramification is gonna be out here at the end. So I want this branch. You know, this is the primary. I want the secondary branches to come off at this point, not further out, but right here where the stub is. So I'll seal these before I'm all done. And this is Yaupon holly, so it'll bud back like crazy. Alright, so this branch is on the inside of a curve, so I'm going to take it out. Alright, I still think this one's a little long. See if I can hit the camera now. Oh! Now I'm going to go back and just clean up a few of these cuts, and now that I've roughed them out, I'll try to clean them up, and then I'll put cut paste on them. I still have to decide what to do here, and this guy's just coming off. Alright, if I left this wound out like this, it would even bulge more as it healed. I'm going to use my knob cutter to hollow this out a little bit so that as this heals, it stays about the same level as it is now. This would also be a good, you could also use a Dremel tool here and carve this out nicely. Depending on how hard the wood of the tree is, this can be a task. You just have to do it by taking small bites. Alright, I do think I'm going to get my Dremel and hollow that out a little bit. I think that's still too long. In fact, I'm sure it's too long. Okay, here I have a choice. I have a big stub or I have a smaller stub. Well, always you're trying to build taper, so I know over time this branch is going to end up getting much larger, and this one's also going to get larger. So I think since I can make a choice here, I'm going to take the big stub out and leave the smaller stub. Here and here, I just have what I have to work with. I could take those down all the way and let it totally rebud down to one trunk line or one line, but I think that would leave so many scars on the tree, it'd never look that great. So we'll go like this and just see how it turns out. This will require another really hard work through after it has budded back out. what you'll do is where it has budded, you'll come back and clean up these scars so that you create the taper so it looks natural as it continues out the branch. It's tempting to try to clean up these stubs now, but it's better to wait until you have the buds, and then you'll know exactly what to cut and what not to cut. Okay, this is a little more than a Dremel tool, but this was handy and it had a nice heavy bit on it. This is a long shaft die grinder, and I'll really have to make sure I hold it steady so that I don't let it jump out and get some of the bark. Alright, just that amount of little hollow right there will help this heal more naturally, and it won't stick out so much. So, and this one here, I'm afraid if I take this down as far as this branch, that I'll put this branch in jeopardy. So I think I'm going to carve this out a little bit more, and maybe even down the side here, like maybe a large branch was broken off here at one time. So that's just a rough start. I'll come back with some gouges and try to clean that up a little bit and try to make it a little more natural looking. So now, what I want to happen is I want the live tissue to roll over this. And then you'll just see that I'll keep it opened up so that it looks like an old branch broken off there from a storm or something. Okay, for now we're pretty much finished, except for the fact that it's time to go ahead and get this out of this, oh, this is probably a 5-gallon pot, I don't know, large container, get the roots down. We've reduced 99% of the foliage. Now would be a great time to go ahead and reduce the roots at the same time. I've done this before with this kind of holly tree, and they respond very well. You would need to be careful with some species, but with this species, I think we can get away with this, even though it's July. Aftercare will be very important, but I'm going to take the saw to this, and we're going to saw the bottom, saw the roots off, and get it so we can put it in a container. So I found a pot I want to use. This is more like a training kind of pot. So I'm going to prepare the pot. You see it's got a great big hole in the bottom. It's also got 4 small holes, that's for the wire. So I need to put some, so the bonsai soil won't come out, I need to put some of this little plastic mesh in the bottom. So I'm going to do that real quick, and you can kind of watch and see as I do it here. Cut the wire a little long, so I'll trim the ends. And while the pot's upside down, I'll go ahead and feed my tie-down wires. Get them snug across the bottom. Okay, that's what goes into prepping a pot, getting it ready. You always want to tie the tree in. You don't want the wind to be blowing the tree and moving the new roots or breaking the root tips off. That's a great way to lose a plant quickly. So since we do grow in containers, it's important to secure the plant into the container. So now I'll add some soil. I'm going to finish root pruning the tree. You know, you saw me saw it off. Now I need to clean up the edges a little bit and actually make it so it'll fit into this pot. It's still a little bit large for this pot. Then I'll add soil, get the tree secured in with the wires, and then finish with the soil. So we move on. I want to clean up the edges of the roots a little bit. Get any of these roots that have been winding around the pot cut back. I'm getting some of the old soil out of the tree. The last thing I'll do is spray it with a water hose and really get it cleaned up. So that's about all I'll do on these upper edges. I'll do the same thing across the bottom here. See is a fair amount. You'll be able to see it better once I wash it. I'm going to go ahead and prune here. So nice clean cuts on these root tips. That's important. They'll tend to come back faster if you've got good clean. So keep your root shears sharp. All right, time for a spray. See, we really didn't cut through that many roots there. There's a couple roots that were growing sideways that we cut through long ways, but the other ones were pretty small. They weren't that huge. So you can see they're like the branches, the roots ramify pretty quickly. So you can get away with cutting it back like we just did. All right, we'll check it in the pot now. All right, that looks good. That'll fit no problem. Plenty of room to grow in there. In fact, I'll probably have it so it's raised up a little bit more. So now it's time for some soil. It's sifted decomposed pine bark, turfus, and a little bit of decomposed granite that I strain out at the river. That's my basic bonsai soil mix. You want to make sure you get good contact in this situation because this is cut so flat. I don't want any pockets of air under there, so I really want to twist the tree around, twist the tree around a little bit. Make sure I've got good contact. Now I add a little bit more soil and I'll tie down the wires to secure the tree there. I don't put the cut paste on until the end because I'm still handling the tree. And I'll end up with it all over my fingers. So. I use the chopsticks just to settle the soil down in between the roots. And once again, to make sure there are no air pockets. You don't want any pockets of air. You know, you need soil that breathes and that oxygen moves through and air moves through, but you don't want any big pockets. Just securing the wires down to make sure the tree's snug in the pot. Typically, I like to be able to pick the tree up by the trunk. I don't do that all the time, but that's how secure I like to have the tree in the pot. I really should have used a little heavier wire since this is kind of a heavy tree in a big pot, so I'm not going to, well, loosened it up. So. Okay, I've been looking at this tree and looking at this tree, and this is where I originally thought the front was. I'm not sure if it's not going to be more interesting from over here, but this stump keeps bothering me. It's growing out of the inside of this big curve here. It also creates a little reverse taper. So I think I've done so much to this tree, now's the time to go ahead and fix this. So I'm going to cut this stump out completely, and hopefully another branch will sprout right there. That would be perfect. But that wouldn't be inside the curve. This is really inside the curve, and as I said, it kind of creates some reverse taper. So I'm going to do a I'm going to cut it 2 different ways. I'm going to cut in and then I'm going to cut down. Alright, so that was the sideways cut. Now I'm going to cut down. I'm just going to kind of take an L-shaped chunk out of here and then I'll clean it up with the, probably with the grinder. So that really improves the taper on this tree. And even after it's cleaned up, it'll look even better. If you're going to do it, you might as well do it. Time to soak it good and then we'll put cut paste on it. Paste. I use the Play-Doh like clay type of Japanese cut paste. I've just always had good success with it. And the most important thing to do when you're putting cut paste on is make sure that the edges are sealed, or not really sealed, but are protected and maintained moist. If they dry out, the wound's not going to heal. So that's my reason for using cut paste, is to make sure that those edges where I have left a nice clean cut will begin to heal and roll over, and callus over. The secret to putting on cut paste is to having a wet fingertip. It's got to be wetter than what the tree is. The cut paste sticks to the drier surface. So as long as your finger's moist and wet, you're good to go. Now, I could seal this whole little area, but I think I'm just going to seal the edges because that's the part that's important. I'm using way more cut paste than I really need. But that's fine. Once it starts to callus underneath, this cut paste will crack and split apart. It becomes obvious, and at that point you can just remove it. So, because it's done its job. Once it starts to heal over, you don't need the cut paste anymore. So. Last step, especially aftercare is everything with these guys. I'm going to add just a fine layer of sphagnum moss, maybe an eighth, a quarter inch thick, and what this does basically is just help the tree maintain moisture. This soil is pretty free draining. You probably saw that while I was watering it, and this will help maintain a level of moisture to help this tree recover. Once it's recovered and established in the pot, it doesn't need this anymore. Last little trick I do is I use my thumb on the edge of the soil surface to indent the soil a little bit lower than the edge of the pot. That way, when you're watering it, the water tends to hit that edge and go down and not over. Alright, there you go. That's a drastic reduction of both the top of the plant and the roots. This was Yaupon holly. We left a few leaves on there. But now you can see this tree, which was originally from a nursery and was probably 3 foot in diameter and better than 3 foot tall. Now it's going to end up making almost a show hen sized tree, so a small sized tree. But it's going to have a super powerful trunk. So to me, this is a really good example of you've got to get the trunk you want before you ever put it in a bonsai pot. So now that I have a trunk line, I've got big base and nice roots, I'll start developing the branches. So if I'd have put this little stick in a pot, in a bonsai pot, and expected it to grow over the years, it never would have happened. You have to find them big and use the subtraction method of bonsai and reduce them and regrow them. So there you go, that's it. May never be a super tree, but it'll be alright.